Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe, because what you're about to hear is painful. Very painful. Imagine nukes, gone in a single night. Codes useless, silos silent, the famous briefcases reduced to heavy props. The world wakes with everything else still on the table. Tanks, fleets, jets, satellites, drones, factories, fiber optics, and a century of grudges stretching their backs. The spark is petty. The way disasters like to begin. A surveillance drone gets shot down over the Taiwan Strait. A minister posts something smug. An admiral nudges a buoy across an invisible line. Phones light up. Lawyers write statements. No one finishes. The horizon thickens with contrails, and the sea starts speaking carrier. The United States moves first because it is built to move first. Carrier strike groups fan out like rooks. Stealth bombers rise as rumors with wings. High-altitude drones lay a silver veil of sensors across routes that might matter tomorrow. Europe bolts upright. Leopard 2s roll out of sheds that smelled like museums yesterday. Rafales and Typhoons climb into air that tastes like aluminum. Brussels argues with Warsaw, Paris with Berlin, and still the conclusion is simple. Move now. Count paperwork later. China answers without speeches. Factory windows glow at 3 in the morning. Highways become conveyor belts. Port cranes chew the sky like patient animals. New brigades materialize from asphalt. South toward Vietnam, west into the passes, east toward beaches facing an island like a dare. The mobilization streams through private feeds. No slogans, only timestamps and unit codes. The world's largest spreadsheet learning to march. Russia plays older music, rails clatter, depots exhale, artillery parks drum into wet fields, bridges get guarded, maps unfold across kitchen tables that haven't hosted a meal in days. The first move is not glamour, it's geometry. Jammers smear the sky, GPS becomes a rumor that comes and goes like rain. Patrols probe seams in the Baltics the way a boxer tests a ribcage. Nobody says war, everybody acts like it. The center of gravity isn't headcount, it's logistics and cognition. Whoever pushes ammo to the front and fresh data to the barrel wins minutes that become miles. The US flies fuel like it's oxygen and lands it on strips that barely qualify as land. Europe discovers that spreadsheets don't bleed for you when shells run out on day 3. China is momentum in boots until it meets the ocean. The Malacca choke narrows to the width of a credit card. Submarines gatekeep. Freight rates go vertical. Every microchip feels heavier than it did last week.
Taiwan refuses to blink. The first 96 hours were supposed to be neat surgery. Instead, they are cliffs and alleys and bridges too narrow for speed. Special forces land, and special forces sink. Radar looks like a snowstorm. Identification collapses into probability. Friendly fire becomes a rumor everyone believes and nobody confirms. Cyber units crack 1 million passwords before lunch, but electricity, like morale, is a local problem. Los Angeles banks hiccup, Berlin hospitals reboot, Shenzhen goes dark for 11 minutes that officially never happened. Machines misbehave. A U.S. autonomous wing tries air-to-air refueling and kisses a cargo blimp. A Chinese quadcopter swarm follows a spoofed heat trail into a valley and never climbs out. Russian decoys, rubber tanks with cheap radio emulators, drink missiles that cost more than the villages they pretend to guard. A European AI recommends pausing in advance because rain will turn fields to glue. Commanders laugh, go anyway, and relearn, again, that physics is a better general. By week 3, the war has the rhythm of a factory. The same targets die, regenerate, die again. Satellites wink out with puffs of plasma nobody sees from the ground. Subsea cables acquire bruises from tools the public has never heard of. In the Black Sea, cheap boats with expensive brains bite destroyers and drown like spent bees. Every soldier is a sensor, every phone is a liability, every rumor is a weapon that doesn't need a battery. Casualties race past the point where numbers mean anything. You don't say 50,000. You say, the 41st Brigade isn't a brigade anymore. Refugees frost the margins of maps, politicians talk about resolve, quartermasters talk about bearings and brake pads. In the Baltics, towns change hands twice before lunch and nobody celebrates. In the Pacific, airfields sprout camouflage the color of confusion. Plywood, netting, inflatable hangars, and an artist's forced perspective to make satellites see ghosts.
The US loses ships it believed it would never lose.
Funerals roll like a tide that ignores the forecast. China runs out of satellites and tries to stitch the sky from balloons. It works better than anyone expected and worse than they need. Europe prints shells the way bakeries print croissants and still can't feed the appetite of steel. Russia burns through Soviet stockpiles and admires its rail network like a grown child, scarred, stubborn, irreplaceable. Money, the quiet fuel of everything, begins to scream. Insurers vanish, currency pegs wobble, grain is late, prices spike. Bakeries in Cairo and Dhaka cut loaves thinner and count customers slower. The internet is mostly up, but feels haunted. Your feed is drone footage, then a cat video, then empty grandstands at a stadium that is now a field hospital. The soundtrack is FPV buzz and the soft click of 1 million people turning off location services. And then something human happens. Enemy units start talking inside the comments of weather apps. "We won't shoot tonight if you don't." Everyone treats it as a joke. The joke saves lives. A bridge scheduled to die at 200 dies at 220, so a medic convoy can cross. Officers pretend they never heard. That week, the map barely moves. The graveyards do. By month 3, every army learns the same lesson. The plan was decisive victory. The reality is decisive entropy. Push and your tail snaps. Pause and your front dissolves. Factories can build more drones. They cannot build more time. The US keeps the seas mostly blue, but blue water doesn't occupy gray cities. China holds the interior until the coast reminds it who pays the bills. Europe survives by becoming less centralized and more stubborn, brigades stitched across languages by software that doesn't care about flags. Russia survives by remembering how to move heavy things far and by pretending that distance is strategy. Negotiators grow like weeds in the cracks. They start with prisoner swaps, add rules for ambulances, then edge towards something that isn't quite a ceasefire and isn't quite peace. Call it a truce with allergies. Lines freeze in ugly, sensible places. A ridgeline here, a river there, a highway nobody wants to cross again. Everyone declares success in a tone that makes the word sound like a bandage. Stories bloom about heroics that happened and some that didn't, about mistakes that were brilliant and brilliance that was a mistake.
What did the war decide? Nothing, which is itself an answer. It proved that numbers don't conquer physics, that oceans remain rude to armies, that satellites are mortal, that logistics is a deity with bad manners, and that morale is a currency you mint locally and spend globally. It showed that victory without annihilation looks suspiciously like exhaustion with better branding. It reminded continents that steel is heavy and humans are heavier. When it finally quiets, louder wars end. This one merely gets tired. The cleanup crews look like archaeologists in uniform. They catalog ordnance, patch fiber, drag gray holes onto beaches like beached moons, and plant trees where drones once slept. Cities relearn the taste of dust. Kids learn the shape of incoming, the way their grandparents knew the shape of ration lines. Economists invent new adjectives, poets return to old ones, and you, wearing headphones, ask the obvious question: who won? The clever answer is nobody. The honest answer is the future, maybe. If the people who run numbers now decide to run them on hospitals and grids instead of artillery and runway kits. If the same minds that taught a drone to aim can teach a city to heal. If the logistics that fed 12 fronts can feed 12 countries during a drought. If. Because the highlight reels never show the real ending. The last drone landing because its pilot simply stops, not from fear or orders, but from the arithmetic of a soul saying, enough. Wars end there, in a subtraction no algorithm predicts. The map stops shaking, radios exhale. Somewhere a bakery opens on time and sells bread at the old price, and an old woman buys 2 loaves because her grandson is coming home and needs to remember what warm bread weighs. That's the lesson of the ultimate conventional war. The age of decisive battles is over. The age of decisive choices is still available. The four biggest armies can punch each other for a season and discover the face that really hurts is the one in the mirror. Without nuclear weapons, humanity can almost survive its worst ideas and maybe, just maybe, grow out of them.